Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today I have a very interesting project. We had some very old nightstands and I really wanted to get new ones, but I did not have the money to buy some. So I saw an idea on Pinterest which I thought of I could do, and it will be much cheaper than actually buying new nightstands, and this actually will turn out to look very cool if I get it right. A quick disclaimer, I do DIY projects in my house. I have no idea of what I'm doing. I use whatever I have on hand and I just go and buy those few things that I need that I do not have. So the point is to use things that I have in my house in order to save money. And if you want to learn how to do this project with me, please keep watching. Here is the most important piece for this project, and this is how I'm going to be turning out these vintage suitcases into a nightstand. First, I got this one at the Goodwill. I found the green one at a jar sale for $5, so it was a very good deal. What I like about this idea is that once you open the suitcase, you have some storage in there. So that is really nice idea. It is going to be a little bit more complicated than the one shown on Pinterest because I'm going to be using these bar stools instead of buying legs for the nightstand. So here's how I'm going to be saving money. These tools were left behind whenever we bought the house. They were here. They are pretty old and beat up and they need to be cut and sanded, and I have all that planned out already. I did not want to buy the legs because they run a little bit expensive, and I thought if I bought new items then pretty much will be like buying a whole new nightstand. Is where it gets a little tricky. The blue suitcase, it's hard enough to hold stuff on the top, but the green one is very soft. It's just leather and I won't be able to put a lamp or anything on top if I leave it like that. So my plan is to trace this on paper and then use this as a guide to cut some piece of plywood that I have somewhere in the house. As I said, I'm not going to be buying new materials if I can find something that helps in the house. I'm going to need two of these, one for the top and one for the bottom of the suitcase. Over here I show you how the paper looks once it has been cut out, and here is how it looks now that it has been traced on the wood. After cutting it, the edges did need a little sanding because they were very rough, so we took care of that. And the next step was the fun and easy part, and that was to paint. I chose this blue color because this would match the other luggage that I had, so I kind of wanted them to be matching even though they are a little bit different in shape. Real quick, I'm going to show you how I painted the suitcase. This project would have been a lot easier if I had two matching suitcases that were the same color, but it would have been almost impossible to me to find the same thing, especially trying to buy them online or in another thrift shop or in jar sales. So I figured the easy way to do it would be just to find one that is cheap and then paint them the same color. I was really careful to just paint the leather because I did want the silver details to stay the same. The other suitcase also had a silver detail, so I thought that would be really cool that they would be matching. I am not sure what paint works the best on leather. I just got regular paint for interior and so far it looks really good. I thought that one coat will do it, but I ended up doing two for better opacity. After sanding the edges of the board, I used the same paint that I used for the suitcase and I painted both sides of them. I also had to do two coats on this one so they matched the suitcase color and opacity. I did let the paint dry for about 20 minutes between coats just to make sure that it looked good. Taking care of the stools that I had to take off the cushion and the leather and also the staples that were keeping it together. I used this little tool that is to get the lid off the paint can, so I don't know what it's called, but that was pretty handy for this part. This right here was my least favorite part of the project, and that was sanding the stool. I had three different type of blocks to sand. I used honestly whichever I thought that would work the best depending on the surface and whatever make it easier to work with. It would have been much easier just to buy the legs for the suitcase, but since I was trying to save money, I had to put in the extra work. One of the blocks was much easier to work with depending on the area that I was sanding, so I kept switching back and forth between them just to get this done. It did get very messy, so I kind of wish that I used gloves because I had all the dark paint all over my hands and my clothes. The next day was time to paint, but first I had to make sure that my stool was completely clean. As you can see here, I used this rag to remove all the excess of dust or paint that was left from the sanding, and I used some paint that I already had. This was something that we used to paint in our rooms, and I also reused the brush as well as some of the painter's paper that we had left to make sure that I didn't get the floor stained. So pretty much everything that I'm using right here are things that I already have, and this is what it's all about. That's why I like working on DIY projects. I had the paint, I had the stools, I had the brush, I had to put in the work. I did one coat and then the next day I came back and I did a second coat. This was a little tedious, but it wasn't as hard as working on the sanding, and at the end it looked really nice. Since the suitcase is going to be attached on top of the stools, the most important thing to do was to paint the legs, but I decided to paint the top anyways. And after 2 layers of white paint, this is how the stools turned out. I'm honestly really surprised on how good they look. Just remember that they were black and they looked all beat up, and now they look so very nice. This right here was the fun part of this project. I used some painter's tape to make sure that I had the suitcase in the perfect position before I attach it to the stool. The best thing to do would have been to measure it, but I'm really bad at measuring stuff for some reason, so I decided to eyeball it and it turned out to look good at the end. I also made sure to mark where I wanted to screw the stool to keep it all together. I made use of a drill to make the holes first before I put the screws in. This was not my first time using a drill. I did not struggle, but I wasn't very confident about it. So take notes for everyone at home. Don't be afraid to try these tools. I didn't want to wait for my husband to help me. He was at work. I had some free time, so I kind of just figured it out myself. I got these screws. I actually had them at home. I don't know where they came from, but we had a bunch of them. They were about an inch. They were long enough to keep everything together, but not too long to go through the whole thing. So once again, I used the drill to put the screws in, and then my suitcase was all secure and I had all the parts put together. And here is a closer look on how the screws went through the suitcase. I'm really glad that they didn't damage anything. And here comes the second one, which was actually the hardest one. I had to make sure that I had the wood perfectly aligned with the suitcase and that I had placed it in the right place before I drilled it. After that, I followed the same steps that I did with the other one. I make sure that I made the holes with the screw first, and then I put in place the screws. Now I also want to show you that I could have easily used a screwdriver, but it was just so much easier to use a drill in this case. This was not my first time using one, so it was really nice to just get this done quick. Now, keeping the top together to the suitcase was a little bit of a challenge. I thought that putting screws would be too harsh and it will break the wood, so I decided to go for super glue that works pretty much on leather, wood, plastic, pretty much on anything. Before I put the glue in, I got some painter's tape just to make sure that it will keep everything in place once I have used the glue. And I pretty much went in and used as much as I could. I had to do this really quick because I needed a drying time of 15 seconds. So I put the board back and then I started taping it. And then I realized that I could have just let gravity take care of it. So I turned the whole thing upside down and let it sit there for about 5 minutes just in case. After those 5 minutes, I flipped it back and then my nightstand was completely done. And at that point, I realized that it was a lot of work, but it was so very worth it. Here is how it looked before, and here is how it looks now. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I have a very nice nightstand that I did all by myself. This was the first time trying something like this. I'm really happy that I found the right tools to put all of this together. Now, as you can see, all I had to do next was to put my lamp and some decorations on top of it. Another great thing about it is that this can be used for storage. It might not be as convenient as having a drawer in your nightstand, but you can for sure keep some things in there that you probably don't use that often. And here is how the other one looks. So that is pretty much everything that I have to show you today. I want to thank you all very much for watching. I really hope that you liked this video, and I hope that this encouraged you to try to use the things that you have around your house and don't rush to buy new things whenever you can use something that you already have. If you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you on my next project. Goodbye.